You are such a genuine gem. Thank you for clicking on my video. I'm Brooke Makenna, but today's case is about bullied teens who murdered for revenge. Now, when there is such a thin line between victims and killers, who is in the wrong? Is vigilante crime ever okay? The Broward Seven became infamous due to the world wondering just how kids were becoming killers. I also want to say it's my absolute passion to make these videos. I mean no harm or disrespect when I do so, and if it's something that you would like to support me in, all you have to do is make sure you are subscribed with the post notification bell on, giving this video a thumbs up, and leaving a nice comment down below. Now let's get back to the story. So it was 1993 in Florida, and Marty Puccio was a 20-year-old living in Hollywood in Florida. Now this was also in Broward County. He had a best friend named Bobby Kent, who was his same age. Bobby lived in the same exact block as Marty throughout their whole childhood. So they had been friends since about 3rd grade, and they loved going to the gym and to bars together as they had grown older. They would also even make movies together, and while they both attended the South Broward High School, Marty had dropped out in the 11th grade, while Bobby actually went on to get a diploma. But by the time they were both out of school, they were still both very close, and they wanted to start businesses together. Yet they were still kind of connected to the high school lifestyle because Marty's girlfriend, Lisa Connelly, and Bobby's girlfriend, Alice Willis, were actually 17 and 18, and they were still in high school at the time. So the four would hang out often, as Alice and Lisa were actually best friends as well. Yet one night in July of 1993, one person would not make it out of this friendship alive. You see, a body was found in a secluded marsh near Weston, which was about 30 minutes from Hollywood. This victim had been stabbed multiple times in the throat and stomach, and also had his throat slashed. He'd also been bludgeoned over the head and to death. Surprisingly, investigators hadn't needed to start an investigation because they didn't even know a body was out there. No passerby had stumbled upon this crime scene, and no tips had been called in. However, Detective Frank Elizara suddenly had a witness to a crime he didn't know had occurred because the witness had come to him. This was a 19-year-old boy named Derek Dzvirko who promised to take this detective to the body of Bobby Kent. Bobby's father had noticed that he hadn't come home that July 15th after hanging out with his friends that night, and by noon of the next day, his father decided to go and try to find Bobby. He walked down the street to talk to his best friend Marty, and when Marty answered the door, he told them that he had seen Bobby the night prior, but they hadn't actually hung out. They didn't stay together because Bobby was actually going on a date with a girl that he had met through his job. Now, out of nowhere, he also said that he hoped Bobby wasn't a victim of gang violence, and then suddenly another person popped out in the doorway. This was a girl. This was Marty's girlfriend, Lisa. She seemed a bit panicked, and she asked what was going on. Marty seemed cool, calm, and collected, but Lisa seemed anything but, and Marty immediately told her to shut up and get back inside. But that is when Bobby's father went back home, and that's when he noticed that the answering machine had a message on it. When he listened to this, Marty's voice was talking to Bobby, saying that he had made it home that night and was just calling to let Bobby know because Bobby wanted him to. This wasn't something that they normally did, and it was a bit odd, but Bobby's father ended up going to the police station and reporting him missing. Investigators then got a tip saying that Bobby Kent was dead and that Lisa Connelly had actually told this person who was calling in the tip that information. Now, investigators went back to question Marty and Lisa, and they both denied anything. Marty was saying that he wouldn't know what to do with himself if Bobby was really dead, and Lisa said if she knew anything, she would tell them.
Did you have anything to do with the stabbing or the disposal of Bobby's body?
No way.
Do you have any personal knowledge as to what might have happened to Bobby?
I hope he's not. I pray to God he's not dead. Because I don't know how I'd live my life. It'd be very hard for me.
Do you know who had anything to do with Bobby's disappearance?
If I knew, I would tell you.
Investigators already had a witness in their hands saying that he would take them to the body. This was Derek, and although his story was wild, investigators were getting more and more sure that he was telling the truth, especially when there was a body to prove it. And Derek had taken them to the scene, and ID identified the body as Bobby Kent. He had also lost a lot of blood, and there had been a horrific fight. Investigators said that he had been very hard to kill. Bobby was from Iranian immigrants, Fred and Farah, and he was said to be the strong, good-looking, popular guy and the type of guy that most parents absolutely loved. After high school, he had started going to the community college. He was also working at a grocery store deli to make some money, and he had this whole group of friends who adored him, or so everyone thought. Bobby had dreams of starting a car stereo business with his father, but now none of his dreams would come true. Because Derek said that on July 13th, he was hanging out with a group of teens when they began discussing a plan to murder Bobby the next day. He said that there was a group of 7 of them, and the 14th they came back together to finalize their plans, and that's when they got their weapons together, which were 2 knives, a baseball bat, and a lead pipe. And then around 11:30 p.m., they invited Bobby to come with them to hang out. And so they all went to this construction site. But why would Bobby have gone with his killers? Well, that was easy to answer because Bobby thought that they were all his friends. You see, Marty Puccio, his best friend, had asked them to hang out that night to race their cars together. And Marty also said that Bobby's girlfriend Alice was going to be there and promised that they could talk. Bobby was more than happy to come along, and they then headed out to this secluded area where there was this marsh and there was no people around. Alice and Bobby then went off together to talk, and shortly after, he was being attacked. Derek then said that he helped dump his body into the marsh because they all believed that the alligators in there would get rid of all the evidence. Derek's story was further confirmed when it was found that Lisa Connelly, who was Marty Puccio's girlfriend, had confessed to her own mother saying that the same thing had occurred. Now the thing was, Lisa's mother turned out to be sisters with Derek's mother. They were cousins, and so the sisters took the cousins in to their brother, who was friends with people in the police department, and he got them in contact with the detective. Derek immediately confessed, admitting to what they had done, but Lisa didn't. But how do best friends turn on each other so brutally, and why? And who else was involved in this murder? There were said to be 7, and at this point, they only had 3. Well, the year prior, in 1992, Marty's girlfriend Lisa began to get upset at how often Marty and Bobby were together and were away from her. That's when she decided to set Bobby up with her best friend, Alice, and make Alice his girlfriend so Lisa and Marty could have some time alone. But Alice and Bobby were said to be more of an on-again, off-again relationship. They were kind of toxic, and Marty and Lisa's relationship was getting even stronger, even though Alice and Bobby's was falling apart. In fact, Lisa said Bobby could no longer be in the picture anymore at all because they had a baby on the way. You see, many said that nobody knew how awful these friendships and relationships were behind closed doors, and the friends of these friends were only getting glimpses of how horrible it was. Even Bobby and Marty's parents didn't want them hanging out after a while. They had been friends since the 3rd grade, but Bobby's parents thought that Marty was this sucker who had no future and was bringing Bobby down with him, and that basically Marty would destroy the future that Bobby was building. Yet Marty's parents, on the other hand, were getting worried about their son because they believed he was in danger. You see, he would often come home with scratches and bruises and he was bleeding, but every time he would say he was okay and that they were just roughhousing like they always did. It was no big deal. But friends of the two Marty and Bobby, also said that they once saw Bobby force Marty to play with his dog, who was known to bite and attack people, and that's exactly what he did to Marty. Now, they would also make movies together, like I told you, but these weren't just regular movies. These were sexually explicit films where they were directing people so that they could sell these at local pawn shops. They had allegedly gotten a 40-year-old man to perform sexually explicit things in a movie they called Rough Boys, and they tried to sell it. But the people who were buying said that it was only dancing nude and playing with toys and that they weren't interested. It was also horrible audio and quality. But the man in the film later said that he was beaten up and robbed by Marty and Bobby to have to perform in this movie. During this time, these two boys were also frequenting the gym, where they were said to be using steroids to get even more strong. And it was said that this made Bobby even more aggressive and his behavior got even worse. Kids all around Bobby said that, yeah, the parents did love him because they didn't see what all the kids did. And the kids looked at him in a completely different way, especially his girlfriend, Alice. Now, Alice had been in trouble with the law before. She was a teenage sex worker, and this got her in a lot of trouble. But when she started dating Bobby, they were only dating for a few weeks before Alice actually decided to end the relationship because Bobby was being abusive. He would always say he was sorry and tell her he wouldn't do it again, pretend it didn't happen, but Alice got tired of dealing with it. Bobby continued asking her to hang out, and Alice felt like she had no choice to because her best friend was dating his best friend. And so a few weeks prior to the murder, Alice actually moved all the way to Palm Bay to get rid of him and to live with her parents once again. And this was actually an hour away from Bobby. That's when Bobby allegedly told Lisa that he was going to go to where Alice was, murder her, and then smother her baby. She had a baby from a previous relationship, and he claimed he was going to kill them both. This was unless Alice came back to date him. And hearing this, Alice did return, but instead of enduring his abuse, Lisa and Alice came up with a plan. They decided they were going to kill him themselves before he had a chance to kill them. You see, Lisa said that she was trying to get Marty away from this toxic relationship with Bobby, but Marty couldn't. He couldn't bring himself to leave this toxic friendship on his own. So Lisa took it into her own hands, and then Lisa and Alice both had a motive. So on July 12th, Alice and Lisa got Bobby out to this rock pit area, and they wanted to carry out their plan. Lisa's mother had a pistol that she took, and they ended up not being able to do so. The plan was Alice was going to start kissing him, then move down, and Lisa was going to take this chance to shoot Bobby where it would not hurt Alice. But this didn't end up happening. Lisa couldn't do it, and instead, Bobby and Alice were seen holding hands later that night, and she would say that they went back to their house and she was sexually assaulted by him. The next day is when all of the friends got together at Lisa's home to come up with a bigger plan. And this was Alice, Lisa, and Marty, which we already knew, but there's also 4 more involved. A 17-year-old named Donald Semanec was there because he was Alice's new boyfriend. Alice's other friend was an 18-year-old named Heather Swallers, who came for nobody really knows the reason why. Heather was actually another high school dropout and a drug addict at this point, but the 6th and the 7th member of this group would not be brought into the equation just yet, one being Derek, who would later confess, but he was not there yet. You see, on July 13th, Lisa, Alice, Donald, and Heather met with Bobby and said that he could drive their Mustang. Now, Marty was not said to actually be with them that night, his best friend. Lisa brought her mom's pistol once again, and they had plans to shoot Bobby. But Donald and Heather ended up leaving the scene because they felt uncomfortable, and then of course Lisa couldn't do it again. That's when she decided to contact the last member of the group, and this was a 20-year-old named Derek Kaufman. So we'll be calling him Kaufman so you don't confuse him with the other Derek. But Kaufman was a self-proclaimed hitman whose name was given to Lisa by one of Alice's friends. Kaufman was immediately in when he heard the plan. However, the group of friends was saying, we need to do this tonight. And he was saying, I cannot get a weapon that fast. And so when he told them it wasn't possible, they decided to leave him behind and go back to Lisa's house. So it was Lisa, Alice, Donald, Heather, and then Kaufman actually went with them and went to Lisa's house to come up with another plan and find new weapons. Except this time, Lisa's cousin, Derek, was there at her house and he would hear everything. At this point, he said that they were determined to make it right to actually commit the murder on July 14th, the night the murder actually occurred, because this time it didn't fail. Marty was involved this time, and he, Lisa, Donald, Heather, and cousin Derek were all together when Bobby came with them to this secluded spot to talk to Alice and to get her to stay in the area. Heather also went over to talk to them and asked Bobby if he wanted to go swimming and if he thought alligators were in the marsh. At this point, Donald snuck up behind them and stabbed Bobby in the neck. Now, he had no hesitation with doing this, and Bobby reached back and felt the blood and immediately told Alice he'd been hit. Bobby then began asking his best friend Marty to help him, only to be stabbed in the stomach by his best friend. And Bobby then tried to escape, only to be tackled, and his throat was slit because he had been yelling apologies at Marty, saying that whatever he did, he was sorry. They could hear gurgling and his head was smashed over and over again. Kaufman began hitting him over the head, bludgeoning him, and then he was dead. Lisa and Derek had said that they stayed by the cars the entire time, but then Derek was called over to help dispose of the body. And so Derek, Donald, Marty, and Kaufman dumped his body, and then they all left. They went to this beach to hang out, and Kaufman began to threaten them all, saying that if anybody said anything, they would be dead too. They then proceeded to destroy the evidence. They cleaned off the baseball bat and they threw the knives in the ocean, and then they began to create an alibi. The group decided that they would tell anyone who asked that they were at South Beach together all night, and Bobby was thought to be out with a girl they didn't know. They had just committed murder, but they thought that they were all on the same page to get away with it. However, many members of the group slowly began to crack and confess to people what they had done. Lisa told one of her friends, who ended up, leaving the tip with the police. And then, of course, Derek took a step further and actually went to the police to talk. And so did Alice that same exact day, agreeing to confess to everything and have it recorded. She believes since her only role was to coerce Bobby to talk to her and get him to the crime scene, she would not be charged. However, she would be arrested and charged with murder. Derek was then arrested as well, and investigators went searching for Lisa, Marty, Donald, and Kaufman, as well as Heather. And while knocking on Marty's door, Bobby's father went up to investigators and asked them what they were doing. He said, "Is this about my son? Why are you going to arrest Marty?" And they realized that he hadn't even been told that his son had been found deceased. When he was told, he instantly started sobbing. And meanwhile, Marty was not found inside of his own home, but this was because he had turned himself in at the police department. Soon enough, all 7 members were in custody, and Lisa claimed she knew nothing about the murder, that while she was watching it happen, she was scared, she was surprised, and she was hyperventilating. She said that she had talked about wanting Bobby dead, but she didn't really mean it. Yet she also said she couldn't believe the police actually believed her when they were lying when they were first questioned.
I lied to the police when they came to the door. I don't know which document, I don't know which. They knew I was lying. How could you not know I was lying,
Alice said that they were only joking about killing Bobby at first, saying they could do a drive-by or poison him, but it quickly turned serious, and Marty had even dressed up like Rambo with a long trench coat and a bandana around his head, and under his coat he was hiding a knife strapped to his leg. All 5 other members pointed the fingers at Lisa and Marty, saying they were the ones who wanted Bobby dead, and Lisa had recruited the rest of them to commit the murder. Yet no one was taking full responsibility, and all pleaded not guilty. That's when it came out that Bobby was this ruthless bully. So when the victim turned out to be the bully, the media took off with this story. The group was known as the Broward Seven, and the media were asking questions like, was this a vigilante murder? Were these teens wrong for what they did? Well, the courts thought so. You see, they were seeking the death penalty for all 7. And in 1994, Heather and Derek, the ones who had the least to do with the murder, were given a plea bargain. If they were to testify against the others, they could get lesser sentences. Though all 7 at their trials showed no remorse. None broke down during the trial, only showing a few tears when they were actually sentenced. Now, this was mainly strange because 3 of them hadn't known Bobby or what he had done prior. If he was a bully, it wasn't like they were retaliating for what had happened to them, because Heather, Donald, and Kaufman had simply been a part of a murder that they were asked to be a part of and didn't know why nor care. During Marty's trial, his mother testified saying that he was this loving person that she called her little lover bug, but he was actually sentenced to death by electrocution. Now, it was also found during this time that Marty really wasn't the ringleader, but he was a participant, and he was Bobby's best friend, because it was believed that the ringleader was Lisa. Lisa actually took the stand at her trial and showed zero emotion while saying she was very sad. She was given life without parole, which was the first time that she cried. Bobby's family said that she was very manipulative. Now, Alice's trial was a bit different because they were trying to say that she was the victim here out of everybody. You see, Alice's attorney said that she suffered from learned helplessness, which stemmed from battered woman syndrome. Now, learned helplessness is this mental disorder that makes you unable or unwilling to avoid encounters that are painful or unpleasant, even if you can, because you have learned that you cannot control the situation and getting away has failed you many times before. Now, this term was coined in the late 1960s by psychologist Martin E.P. Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania, where he was conducting experiments due to finding out more about classical conditioning. He was using dogs at first. He found that dogs who had electric collars on took no action to try to get away from the bad situation, whereas dogs that hadn't already received the electric shock did try to get away. Now, when this went to human trials and loud noises were used instead of shocks, the same results occurred. Now, this term and theory has been said to explain why prior learning can result in a change in behavior from normal. It can mean that this is why people remain passive even if they have a chance for change or a means to fight back, because they have tried many times and failed. Basically, you become conditioned to believe that your situation is inescapable, even if there is a new way to escape. Alice's lawyer said that this was what was happening to her after being abused so much, and that her reaction of running and screaming to the car when the murder occurred showed that she was simply the bait here. She didn't take the stand, but she had said that she knew how to use a gun, and if she wanted Bobby dead, she would have done it herself. She was given 40 years with 40 years probation as well, and Donald was actually sentenced to life plus 15 years for conspiracy. Kaufman was given life without parole for 25 years and an additional 30 years for conspiracy, and Derek was given only 11 years and released in 1999 because, of course, he got that plea bargain, but he is now a single father living in Missouri. Heather, the other person who got the plea bargain, was only given 7 years and released in 1998. But she has since been back in custody for violating probation, but she was eventually released again and now is said to live in Georgia with 2 children. A book then came out called Bully, the true story of high school revenge, written by Jim Schutz. And this became a best-selling book, so much so that it was turned into a movie that became a cult classic. Now, many said that the movie is fairly accurate to the case. However, the movie focuses more on what the parents should have done and that they should have known what their kids were doing and stopped this before, which is fair. However, I do believe that kids can be very manipulative. They can put on this innocent, straight face, and even parents would be unable to see that something was wrong or that they were evil. and coming up with these horrific ideas. However, this isn't the end, because then Marty's death sentence was reduced by the Supreme Court of Florida to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 25 years, which means he could be released in 2022. He is currently serving in the jail ministry and he preaches to other inmates. But Lisa's sentence was also overturned at this point because it was said to be unduly harsh, and she was given only 22 years, which meant she was released in 2004. Today she lives in Melbourne and has 4 children, one of which was Marty's, which she was pregnant with at the time of the murder. But Marty and Lisa are said to no longer be in contact, but their daughter is said to be very smart, and Lisa's cousin Derek, who is of course also involved but already released by this point, says that he hopes that their daughter will do better than their mother did and that she's smarter than that. Some have begun to question if Marty was actually the father of this baby. Some began to wonder if the reason why Lisa was pushing a murder so much was because she had possibly been with her boyfriend's best friend and then got pregnant with his daughter. Later on in life, Lisa was charged with retail theft, which was a probation violation, but she never actually went back to prison. And then she couldn't get a job due to her records, so she began running this cleaning business. And she now only does interviews where her face isn't shown. Now, one of Alice's appeals granted her a reduced sentence of only 17 years, and she was released in 2001, but is still on probation at this time, I believe. But she has been in court for a probation violation as well, and she now lives in Melbourne with her husband and children. But something odd I found was that Alice actually went on Dr. Drew, the show, as an adult, saying that she was afraid to tell her best friend about her past. She had never told her she was in prison for murder, and she, had this opportunity to do so on this show, and that's when she told this friend she had nothing to do with killing him, but she had gone to the crime scene to watch Bobby be beaten up and nothing more. To me, it really appeared as though she was diminishing her role in the actual murder, but I'll let you watch that here.
Alice is a stay-at-home mother of 4, struggling with the decision to reveal a shocking secret to her friend Shannon. She fears that revealing this will end their friendship, and she's also set this up to help you understand that if this does end the friendship, it would be very shattering to her.
Okay.
So, are you prepared to hear what she has to say?
Yes.
You prepared to say it?
Yes.
Okay. Alice, you're on.
When I was in high school, I was friends with several people. I had a boyfriend that abused me extremely bad. Well, there was supposed to be a fight and he was supposed to get beat up. He ultimately got murdered right in front of me. Everybody went to prison. I went for 8 years on a 40-year prison sentence.
Okay. Did you have anything to do with him being murdered, or it was just because you were there?
The majority because I was there to watch a fight and it turned into a murder.
Let's be a little clearer, Alice.
Because of the abuse I had suffered from him.
Physically?
Yes.
Okay.
The boys were supposed to beat him up, and it turned into more than just beating him up.
Did you hire the boys to have them beat
One
up?
was his best friend of 15 years. There was actually more to that I didn't even know have happened between the two of them until after I was arrested, to why they did what they did.
But
that ultimately had nothing to do with me, that part.
There are 2 parts, I think, that are important, though. You helped get him to that location.
Yes.
Let's be fair.
Yes.
You got him there.
Yes, I've always taken that responsibility.
People would say you lured him there.
I've always been there, yes.
And then once it happened, then she was threatened with her life if she were to say anything to anybody. And you should also own the piece where you were the one that did speak up.
Yes, I did. I'm the one that went to the police and
after
basically
he was
got
murdered?
the whole investigation rolling.
After he was murdered?
So it's
Yes.
messy, complicated, and with the trauma history and all, you kind of know how those things happen. Shannon, I see you struggling, trying to get your head around it. What are you feeling?
I feel that if it was, I was abused in high school physically from a boyfriend for a couple years, but I finally left and just got out. I don't understand why she would actually want people to come to beat him up. I would just have left, or I would have went to the police, got a restraining order, or I would have literally went across the United States to get away from him, Canada. I don't know. If you were that worried, or if they said they're going to kill, if you say anything, they're going to kill you, I would have left. Or before the action. After the action, I don't understand how somebody could just stand there and watch and not call 911 as you see a baseball come out. That would be my first reaction. Even though you probably hated him and you wanted him to die in your heart or your head, I can't understand why you would just sit there and...
Well, it was out in the wilderness. There was no cell phones at the time either. And it was at a wilderness lake area. It was totally undeveloped. And as far as the part for when it happened, I was in it because I had heard from my friend that her boyfriend was basically fed up with his bullying and abuse and the stuff that they were doing together, and he just couldn't take it anymore, so he was going to fight him. And I figured after what he put me through, well, I'd like to see him get his butt beat after being through it, so that's why I was there.
Was he still your boyfriend?
No.
Oh, so you had already broke up, and
yes,
you knew, okay.
We had already broken up.
Okay. No, I did not expect you to say that. But I still stand by you. I know you as a person, and I won't leave.
But only 3 out of these 7 remain incarcerated. This is Donald, Marty, and Kaufman. And Donald has said to have 20 infractions while in jail, such as possessing a weapon and drug use. But Kaufman is not much better, with 18 infractions of drug use and disobeying orders. Now, Bobby's family felt really good about the original jury's sentences, but about those who have already been released, Bobby's sister, Layla, has said, "It disgusts me that they have the freedom after killing someone. They're horrible people and they should be ashamed of what they did. They don't even deserve to be alive." But many have questioned the real motive in this case. And, was this learned helplessness from Alice? And she really felt that she couldn't get away and the only solution to that was murder? And if so, did everybody feel this way due to Bobby's bullying? Did they believe that the pain that he was inflicting was inescapable and the only way that they could get away from him was his death? Well, like we've talked about, Heather, Donald, and Kaufman had never been around Bobby. He could not have bullied them. They willingly participated in this murder just because they were asked to. And it was also said that Marty was just as much of a bully as Bobby was. Bobby was just bigger and well known as a bully and would bully Marty sometimes too. It's hard to do these cases where the victims turn out to be not so wonderful people. But did that mean that he should have been killed at 20 years old? I'd love to hear all of your opinions on this. If you believe this is kind of a vigilante crime, if they believe they were helping the world, if it was something that wouldn't have happened if he wasn't a bully. What do you think the main motive was, and who do you think was the real ringleader? I think that it truly was Lisa, and I'm starting to wonder about that whole baby theory. That would have given her plenty of fuel to make sure that this man was gone, so they didn't have any problems when she gave birth. But that is it. Don't forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces. Okay, bye.